Friends, welcome back to the Sober and Wellness Podcast. My name is Abigail Padro and I am your host. Today, I'm very excited to introduce our guest for today. Her name is Patty and she's a nurse. She will be telling her story from that perspective, and I'm very excited as usual. And with any further ado, let's jump in. Hi, Patty. How are you? First of all, I want to thank you for being brave and sharing your
Good.
story to help other people that might be interested in becoming sober curious, or they're at the beginning of their journey or so on. So we definitely want to encourage our listener that there is a possibility to stay alcohol free and still enjoy life, right? That's the point. So let's
Yeah.
start with the first question. What made you get into this lifestyle being alcohol free?
It's funny. At the time, enough was enough. I was turning 50 or turned 50, and I had a teenage daughter that was 12 or 13. She's now 15, going on 16. Excuse me. And it was now or never to get it together and show her a better life and break the cycle of addiction. Looking back now, it's just funny that I'm doing this now because, like, last week, my husband brought home some boxes from work. We had moved down the street, literally in my neighborhood, and I had these boxes stored for 5 years, and I found books I bought 10 years ago, probably, on moderation or how to quit. So they say there's a contemplation period, and there definitely was. It was a long one, but ultimately, just getting older and knowing my daughter's watching and it's time. I just had enough of my own BS. And the final straw was I had an argument with my daughter the night before, and it was the first time I recall ever blacking out, and that just scared the daylights out of me. And I said that
Okay.
was
Yeah,
it.
blackouts are scary, right? When you wake up and you're like, what
They're
happened?
very
They're
scary.
scary and they're sad too, because people sometimes say, I'm having fun, but
Yeah,
you don't remember half of what you did. I mean, is that really fun? You know?
right.
All right, so you did it. So your motivation
Not at
was your
all.
daughter. You wanted to get better. By the way, you look great. 50 is the new, let's say 50 is the new 30s. I'm
Thank
taking two
you.
decades now. 40 is the new 20s.
Yeah.
Yes,
There
let's
we
be
go. I like
positive.
that.
All right. So and how did you start the journey? Did you start reading something? Did you get into a community? How did that look like?
Well, I had the year or two before, it was the year before, gotten on an app called Reframe, and I had had foot surgery. So I was just kind of, I guess, thinking about it then too. I'm a school nurse, so I have summers off, thankfully, and dabbled in it. Didn't really know there were meetings or anything on this app. And I remember that app, and I'm like, I went in all serious and just ready to do something. That time, I don't know that I knew I was going to quit, but I wanted to do something and change my life. So after about, several months, I got on a challenge with some reframers that were well seasoned and had a year, and yet another one was going on a year. I couldn't, or I wasn't serious enough to get 30 days. And one of them challenged me and said, "You're self-sabotaging yourself." And that just lit the fire under me. I made everything about getting sober my life. I sat on reframe meetings several times a day. I felt like, you know what, Patty, God has blessed you. He's given you this job. You have a free summer to get your act together. You need to just pour your heart and soul into this. And that's what I did. I got on meetings. If I wasn't on a meeting, I was listening to Quitlet. I was never on Instagram, and I've got a Instagram account, and just all sober, anything, everybody that I could find. And just so I always had that reel going. I got off Facebook. That was another blessing. Besides, I was hacked, so I just never went back there. And just really made this my priority. And that challenged me also when she had said, you're self-sabotaging yourself. And I wanted to get 30 days in a row. At that point, like I said, I didn't know, am I going to be alcohol free? Am I what am I? I don't even know. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And I knew if you have trouble getting to 30 days, then this is a problem. You need to really hone in on this and just don't future trip. Don't think about forever just keep going, and then get to the 60, and then the 90, and then the 6 months, and then the year. And I'm now at the point where I will be 2 years alcohol free
Wow,
July 9.
congratulations. That's a huge milestone.
So that's, thank
I
you.
like that you said that reframer, that friend said that you were self-sabotaging, because I truly believe that that's what alcohol does to all of us in some capacity, right? The fact that it gets to
Yes.
your brain, the way you think, the way you do things. So, okay. So how many day ones do you have? Do you know?
Oh, Lordy. Let's see. So I joined January of 2023. Seriously, that time. So I can't even count because I didn't even get to the challenges until May of 23. So before that, I don't, five, six probably, and then probably we did the May challenge and I wasn't serious about it. And then I was like, okay, you got a team counting on you and you're trying to get to 30 days. So yeah, probably five or six. A long way
Yeah,
around
that's
your
good.
question there.
The reason
At
I was
least.
asking is because a lot of us have to try many times, right? And we get so disappointing. We get so disappointed every
Yes,
time you have
absolutely.
that you starting day one, but we have to reframe that because the fact is that we are true champions. The fact that we're trying to continue the hustle and to stay alcohol free. And it doesn't matter if it takes you five or it takes you 100 times, as long as you get there, because shame comes in, right? You said that you're not going to drink, but here you are. So
Yes.
definitely, that's just, if you are on day one, anybody that's listening, listen, keep going. You got this. It's like a click. How was it for you? So you got into that summer. What was it for
Yes.
you that this time you're being able to take that, long streak of almost 2 years?
That, like you said, and that I've heard on tons of meetings, something will finally click where you're like, I'm done playing games with myself and playing games with this back and forth and back and forth. And I think when she said that, and I'm a very competitive person, that I'm self-sabotaging, and I was like, oh hell no, I'm going for this. I'm gonna do 30 days. And that's kind of when it clicked. And then shortly after that, I mean, I did all my husband's family, they have several get-togethers all the time. It's very involved around drinking. So all my firsts were right out there from the get-go. Family parties, you name it. My first vacation, sober vacation, was in my first 2 or 3 months of sobriety. And I don't know, something clicked and I just never looked back. I probably had more than 5 or 6 day ones. Too many to count, but like you said, just keep at it, keep trying, never give up. If this is your ultimate goal, it will click and it will happen and
Okay,
you
so
will
in the
get there.
journey of sobriety, you already have time under your belt. You can talk about this a little bit. When you start sobriety, is a different Patty than what you are now, right? The way that the tools that you use, what were your like the set of new beginnings? Like, right, what were the tools that you used at the beginning to just try to conquer this quest?
I immersed myself in Quitlet. I constantly had an audio book or a book that I could put my hands on. There were meetings on this app, Reframe, that were constant, and I treated this like a job. I also, once I got into it, I felt like I couldn't get enough. Like I was just wanted to be in the rooms of these people that had the same goal as I do. Because one of the books I did get immersed in was Sober on a Drunk Planet. Alcohol is everywhere and it's so normalized. And to feel like you belong somewhere when you're going through this journey, that the meetings really made me feel comforted and like I belonged somewhere. I have a refrigerator in my garage that is nothing but NA drinks. I experimented, sorry, with different NA options, different NA beers, different hop waters. I bought them off Amazon, just wherever I could find them. I told anybody that I ran across, I think the word kind of got out a little bit in my family, well, my husband's family, and, they would just kind of people would pick up my drink and, what are you drinking now? And I'm like, I'm drinking my NA stuff. And I just was kind of loud and proud about it and just didn't show any shame or fear to go to these parties. I just went head first. I'm not to say this is for anybody, because it's challenging to go around all these parties and nobody else gets it, what you're doing. So I just immersed myself in everything and was just out with it about my sobriety, and this is what I'm doing. I'm on this app, and I think I talked about it maybe a little too much at
Yeah,
times.
actually, I can resonate a lot, with your story because I also started with a 30-day challenge, right? On my own, I didn't have Reframe yet. But before
Okay.
that, I started with the books. Like with
Wow.
the first one that I heard was The Easy Way Out from, I think his name is Carl. I don't know. I will link it. Yes, Alan Carr.
Alan Carr?
Yes. And I heard that a couple
Yes,
of years
yes,
prior, and then I did the quit lit, right? Then I did the 30 days, and then I got into Reframe, and I started doing a lot of the meetings, kind of just the way you're explaining it. So it does work for anybody that it is looking
yes.
to dive in this experience. One thing that I recommend is just quit lit. If you're not ready yet to start in a community, I get it. Which, that, to be honest, community is really the number one tool that still keeps me sober to this day, because I still do the meetings and Reframe.
Yes.
But if you don't want to start there, I get it. Then start with quit lit, because definitely that starts opening. Knowledge is power. So once you know something, you cannot just
Yes.
undo it. Like, okay, I don't know anymore. So how do you feel
Correct.
about that?
Correct. That is so true. Being in the healthcare field, it's like I knew alcohol was bad, but you just kind of push it away and think, well, but that's not going to happen to me. So, yeah, like you're saying, knowledge is power. The Reframe really teaches you the neuroscience, what it does to your brain, and a lot of it was making sense. It was just so crazy. Like, oh my goodness, I feel like words don't come to me sometimes. Oh my God, is this alcohol? So it really puts it out there, like the health of it, what really happens to your body. So you just can't ignore it and you can't look the other way. I got to the point where I was like, not in your face, but probably giving, and I still do this, give more information than people want, because you just want to tell everybody, oh my gosh, oh, you have AFib, and you drink a lot. Maybe you need to are you telling your doctor how much you drink? Oh, you have neuropathy in your feet. Oh, your feet are too, and you drink a lot. Oh, have you told your doctor? I mean, it just does so much to our bodies. I just can't shut up sometimes about, you know, how bad it is. And that just, all the knowledge really opened my
Yeah.
eyes finally to what it was
I
really doing to
definitely
my
think
body.
that the science, when you start learning the science behind what alcohol does for you, it actually takes the fact that you no longer feel guilty. You're like, yeah, that's why I'm going through this. This is the way I'm feeling this way. Because
Yes,
I think a lot of us
yes,
blame ourselves, and that's where also shame kicks in again. And I always say shame lives in darkness, right? So when you start learning about the science and
yes,
everything that does, and there's so many different aspects that alcohol does to you, from the way you think, your memory, the way you feel, your energy, I mean your mood, your hormones. It is a big deal. So a lot of things,
yes,
what I want to say to our listeners is that a lot of the
yes.
things that you think it's your fault, it's not really your fault. It's a poison that you literally are consuming. But we have to justify it. Isn't that something that we have to justify, the fact that we're not consuming this thing?
Yes, because it's so okayed. It's a societal norm, It's in our commercials, it's in our movies, it's everywhere. They say it's what the one drug that you got to justify quitting because it is so normalized. And you just want to tell everybody, no, you need to really look into this and what it's really doing to our bodies, because I don't know. I look at it almost as cigarettes. Those were normalized. Those used to be in commercials when I was a kid. And I think alcohol is heading that way. Maybe not in my generation. I don't know, maybe I'll see it to where it's not normal anymore. You need to take a step back and think twice before you just continue on. Like, you got to have alcohol for everything, every birthday and baby shower and every event, because it's a drug, it's addicting, and it's this same stuff we put in our cars, for God's sake. So yeah, it's really something when
Yeah,
you
so
step back and
talking
look
about
at
the
it.
social aspect of it, because that's a huge one. And I think it's one of the top three. I will put him in the top three struggles that people have at the beginning of this journey. While you start changing, because you definitely I'm a different person than I am when I started almost a year and a half ago. Like a total Abigail.
Yes.
So what has been challenging? Well, I like the fact that you took bull by its horn and you were loud and proud, which I think it makes it easier. And the fact that you're
Yes.
sharing it here, let us know that you
Hmm.
really are embracing your journey, right? And your
Yes.
new self because it's a new identity. So how was that? Was it hard
Correct.
or not that hard, or what did you do in order to make it the first time on social parties and stuff?
It was very hard. It was scary. It was like, how am I? Because like I said, I was a daily drinker in the last several years, and every party, we had parties at my house all the time, and there were no boundaries with my husband's family. Like, so that was difficult to navigate. It took some time. It probably took a good 6 months before people took me seriously. And you got to learn to set those boundaries. That's another thing you learn through sobriety is so much mental awareness and health of what caused you to drink and how to navigate things. Like, I didn't know what boundaries were. So I kind of learned through the app Reframe about boundaries. I was kind of almost ashamed at first, like having my NA stuff, like, what are they going to say? What are they going to ask me? And I just told them, I'm on a 30-day challenge and this is what I'm doing. And then the next month it was like, well, I'm doing another challenge, which I was with the same group of people. There was a core of 5 of us that did that. And I just kept saying that. And I kept learning things on the meetings of how to navigate what to say whenever I did feel a little like weird. There were some times where I felt like an out of body experience. Like, is this really me? Am I really 90 days sober, 30, whatever it was? I was like, who the hell am I? But it was a weird experience. One of the first things I noticed in the early sobriety was the calm that came around me. I was always a high strung person and get uptight about little things, a mess in the kitchen or whatever. Just that stuff didn't bother me anymore. I think I had a lot of anxiety from the alcohol. That's another main thing that it causes is anxiety, depression. It's a depressant. So why wouldn't I think that it causes all that? So I hope that answers your question. I feel like I just kind of went in a big circle again, but it's just all the things I'm thinking of from the early days of how things went. And then you get that pink cloud of where you're just like, wow, this is great. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
very well worth it. Well
I
worth
like what you
all of
said,
this experience.
like an outer body experience. It's just, I will say it's like an epiphany. You get those from time to time. The last one that I experienced, I was just realizing that I don't need that big party social aspect in my life, and that's okay. Like, I traded the party for peace. Like you're saying, now you're calm, less anxiety. I rather
Yes.
have that than having to be party. But what I wanted to say to the people that are listening, it's not like you become boring. I'm not bored at all. You know what I mean? Like, maybe people like, oh, from party to peace. They're
Right.
like, what the hell is that? I
Yes.
don't want that. Maybe somebody's, but that's not what I'm saying. It is,
Huh?
you're
Uh-huh.
you're in such a good headspace. Your mind is so clear. You're vibrant.
Yes.
you're still enjoying the little things. And I think that's been the biggest shift for me. Before, I was always
Yes.
looking for that catalyst, that moment, that, the ending of the story. And now I just enjoy the journey.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. I feel the same way. Like, I feel like I was always, okay, what's going to make me happy? Let's see. Should I buy something new? You're always chasing that dopamine or whatever. And I don't feel like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm leveled out. I'm not always searching for, let's see, should I buy something new? Should I take a new class? Should I go here, go there? Just constantly searching for something. Now I'm just like, there's a peace and serenity. Might sound cheesy, but there really is like they say your hedonistic set point gets leveled out, and it's so true. I don't know how
To two
long that takes
years.
exactly. It's just, I don't know, a certain amount of time. Yeah, and I
and
feel
that
like I'm
and
there.
that's what I'm saying. The science behind it, it's real, and it tells you that's what it is. That's why you don't understand at the beginning. You might feel sad, or you might be just in a point that you feel blank. There's no emotion, and that's a scary feeling if you
Yes.
feel that. And I guess people that battle
Yes.
with depression are used to it, maybe. But the issue is a lot of people that deal with depression, because I see it in this community, what do you think they use to try to cope with the depression? Is alcohol. But alcohol is a depressant, so it's adding more fire. You might feel good for what, a couple of hours, and then the next day you have that anxiety, you have those suicidal thoughts. I've had different people on this podcast already, about three of them. The one thing that they all have in common is they have suicidal thoughts. I never had those. That was not my problem, but they're real. And guess who's doing that? It's the alcohol.
Right.
What do you think is the benefits so far of
Yes.
your journey?
Yes.
What are the top three benefits that you think you've gained so far?
Oh, I would say the peace and serenity. Um, Showing my daughter this way, like I said, she's going to be 16, and from the get-go, she has talked about, her friends or whatever, and how she's a non-drinker. She said that at 14. I said, "What? You're 14?" I go, "You kids identify as drinkers and non-drinkers already?" She goes, "Oh yeah, mom." And she's like, and I don't, I just don't drink. And so our relationship is just, oh my goodness. Don't get me wrong. There are moments because she's a teenager, and you got a teenager with one set of hormones and you got a woman that's going through the other set of hormones. It's kind of crazy at times, but, I would say relationship with her, relationship with my husband. Now, I must say he's still a daily drinker. So that's been kind of different to navigate, but he is definitely cut back considerably. That's a whole nother story in his own journey if he were to choose. So probably that, the serenity, the relationship with my daughter, and what she is getting out of this by watching mom teach her that this is a drug, and this is, not everybody should be doing this in high school. Mom and dad did it, we should do it. No, it's
I
breaking the
really
cycle.
love that. I have a 19-year-old, so I know I know about teenagers. But I love that because
Yes.
the fact that you are modeling what it is to be alcohol free and a non-drinker, and I'm fascinated that at that age they're already saying drinker, non-drinker, and that she's choosing that identity for herself. That's great. And now the fact that she's seeing mom doing it, because I bet you that she can see benefits from having you in a better state of mind, being more calm, more peaceful. I mean, we all gonna have our moments. Our
Yes.
relationships are tricky sometimes, but that's another thing with the new generation now, because they're doing what we did with the cigarettes. That's how I feel. Like when I was growing up, we knew that
Yes.
cigarettes were bad.
Yes.
I think cigarettes were really high in the 70s, and then the 90s and 2000s started going down because people started to know, crap, that shit gives me cancer. I think that's happening. The new generation are drinking less.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? That makes me happy that these kids are doing that now.
Yes.
But you said something that I want to dive in because I don't have that experience. My boyfriend, he's a non-drinker now because he chose, but he didn't really drink. Like, I think in our relationship when we started, I made him drink more. I was the instigator. But then, because he was the
Mm-hmm.
type of
Mm-hmm.
drinker that he can
Uh-huh.
have one beer and not finish it. That was never me. That will bother me. Like psychologically, I'd be like, "Why are you not drinking it? It's getting warm. It's getting what? You want to drink
Yes.
a soup?" I
Yes.
said all this comment.
Right.
So I don't have that, but I've heard people
Yes.
that struggle with that because, as we know, alcohol free, it's a solo journey. You have to do it for yourself. You cannot make anybody do it. So how is that? Is it triggering? Does it
Right.
trigger anything in you? How are you coping with it?
It doesn't trigger me per se to drink. It aggravates me. So my husband and I fueled each other. We were like the party couple. And like I said, I think this has made him dial back. But becoming alcohol free, I think I was more the one, egging on like at a party, the last one to go, oh, one more, and all that. And where I didn't realize he was the one wanting to go home more so than me. But I will say that kept me from getting sober actually, because I thought, well, what will happen to us? I can't quit drinking. Maybe I'll moderate. Maybe I'll this or that. And finally, like I said, when I had enough of my own bullshit, I was just like, you know what? I got to do this for me, and whatever happens, happens. I can't keep living like this. And it was funny because I didn't even tell him I was on reframe for the first couple of months. I just started walking around the house with earbuds in and on a meeting. I think finally he was just kind of like, "What are you doing?" And I told him. Uh, but to answer your question, what really the hard thing is when he does drink too much, because he could drink two and be fine, or he could, depends on who he's around. If he's around his family, or he seems to drink more. And watching him mentally transition, like repeating himself, or I automatically think in my head, okay, that's affecting, whatever part of the brain, and he's doing that. And it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut in like that moment or the next day, be like, well, you drank a little much, blah, blah, blah. And I'm working on that. It's a work in progress, because it is hard to see someone you love physically be affected by alcohol, like throughout the course of an episode of them drinking. So that's definitely been a challenge.
I haven't really talked about that, but me and my ex-husband, um, he was a non-drinker his whole life, like zero. He doesn't know what being drunk is. Imagine that. And he's what,
Wow,
38, and he's
wow.
never drank. Now, alcohol, I was not a daily drinker, and it was not something that was all the time, but it was there. Now that I can see, like, being out of the relationship, now being on his shoes, right? That I'm the non-drinker. I get a lot of the things that he did say, like the fact that, yeah, you don't want to deal with a person that's slurring words, right? That repeating themselves, because you're
Yes,
completely okay, you're 100% clear, and here you are talking to people that alcohol that makes you dumb. I don't
yes.
care. It really does. Makes your IQ come lower. You start
Yes,
talking
yes, yes.
nonsense, things that it really doesn't make sense. So dealing with that, as far as seeing the other person drinking, it has to be devastating, to be honest. So one thing actually that I'm gonna say is that he already cut back. That's good. And the reason he's cutting back is because you're an example, you know? Like for your
Yes,
daughter, because you have to
yes.
walk the talk. You cannot just say it.
Ex
So,
right,
okay, so those are the benefits.
right.
Are you celebrating your 2 years with something? What are you doing for yourself? I think you should if you're not.
That is a great question. Gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I will buy myself something, but I don't know. Last year is kind of funny. It's kind of silly, but my husband's like, what do you want me to do? What do you want?" And there was a pair of shoes at the time, and I'm like, "You know what? You just give me those shoes over there. They're $100 and something shoes." I mean, it wasn't, I don't know. So I need to think about that. I really need to think about that and celebrate myself a little bit better this year. I think did they get me a cake and things like that? I don't
Yes.
remember, but I'm starting to think about that, because
Yes,
it's
you're
going to be here
almost
before I
there.
know it. And my daughter's 16th birthday
There
is
you go.
right
You
before
should,
that.
because
Yep.
it's a lot of work. You're putting a lot of work. You're like a unicorn in this society now. And we need to stick together and celebrate each other,
Yes,
because we don't get a lot of those celebrations. Can I ask you something else
absolutely.
now that I'm thinking about? What about your friends, your closest friends that you used to drink with?
Sure.
How are you navigating that?
Well, that's funny you say that. I was just talking to my two people that got me here, like I said, from Reframe, and one of my, I guess I should say, ex-best friend's birthday is tomorrow, and I'm like, you know what? It was scary for me to tell her, because we were partners in crime. We were nurses together. Where I used to work, and we would go on group trips. Like, we went to Costa Rica, crazy stuff. And we were the two crazy girls together. We were the last two up at night. And like I was saying, her birthday's tomorrow, and I'm like, I haven't seen her almost 2 years. So you kind of find out, I guess, who your friends are, which is okay, because I've made, a lot more that are not just surface level or party level. They're some of the deepest friendships I could ever imagine on Reframe. Let's see. So, yeah. And then I have another friend that was a best friend that didn't drink. She had given up drinking years ago, and we kind of went by the wayside because I still drink. And now we're circling back and getting to know each other again. So it's interesting that you asked that. So, yeah, I hope
Yes,
that
it
answers your
does.
question.
I think the fact that your priorities change, right? I think your friends are gonna change, even if it's not a drink.
Yes, yes.
We're talking about drinking right now, but even in a lot of different things, as we get older, we evolve. Things we change who we are. I think every decade it's a different Abigail for for whatever reason, or is it because I'm professionally
Right.
going after something else? My goals have changed. What I want to just say is that it's
Right.
okay to mourn, those relationships because you're changing. And with that, your relationship also change. And that is tough. And I like to talk about that because I don't want to make this podcast seem like, oh my God, all these beautiful people are just like rainbows and butterflies. No, we go through hell sometimes. But the only difference
Yeah.
is when you have a
Yes, we
community,
do.
we actually carry each other and we are there for the hard stuff. And that's a different and,
Absolutely.
and it's okay sometimes that friendship maybe right now you're not connecting, but later you can reconnect. And boundaries, you mentioned boundaries, and boundaries, it's a big one that a lot of people don't have in place, especially with family and friends. I think that's the hardest to put boundaries with, and I think
Yes.
that's just such a healthy thing to do for
Yes.
ourselves. But the number one
Yes.
boundary
Yes.
when you stop drinking, you put in it for yourself. And your boundary is I'm not longer going
Yes.
to put this that is hurting me because I want to become my best version. And honoring that word actually helps you to commit to other stuff. And then you say, okay, anything, the more you believe yourself and the more you show yourself that you have a track record, and each day that you get under your belt is a confirmation that I can do hard things. That's how I see it. What about you?
Yes. Absolutely. This is like one of the hardest things I've ever done. In going through this process, it's like I know I can do anything I want to do because, like we've said, this is everywhere. Alcohol's everywhere. If I were to go to a wedding or something and say, I don't want to do that line of Coke, and be like, oh, yeah, yeah, she quit, that could kill her.
Mhm.
Well, so can alcohol, so it definitely builds your mental strength up. Doing something for yourself. And I think a lot of people that are in this situation or in active addiction, you don't put yourself first because you're not used to putting yourself first. You have a lot of people I find in this community have had some trauma in their life, childhood trauma or different mental diagnosis that we were trying to cover up. So it's hard to imagine putting yourself first and taking care of yourself and becoming alcohol free like this. So it's definitely a struggle to be proud of,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
it
at the
is definitely
beginning of
worth it.
sobriety, I think you're trying to find balance, right? You're trying to find a balance as to not to be just constantly
Right.
submerged in talking about alcohol free or just a sober life because it can get exhausting. And it will be at the beginning like that because that's the way that it worked for me. I had to be that person,
Yes.
that obsessed in order for me to change. Now looking
Yes.
forward, I will say that I'm more now it's a rhythm. I already got my rhythm and it's keeping my rhythm. So it's kind of like the gym. At the beginning, your muscles are like, what the hell are you doing? Like you're breaking myself. It's hurting. I'm in pain. Stop, stop, stop. Everything says stop, right? But then once you actually rest,
Right.
you give the proper nutrition, you give your muscles the fuel, then what happens? They grow and they're healthy. That's the same thing. That's the analogy I can see with sobriety. At the beginning will hurt. At the beginning, you have to do a lot of introspection and really think about why am I drinking? Because that's the one problem that people need to look into. Like, for example, if you're starting or you're curious about starting this journey, the first question that you have to really start with and get a piece of paper, your phone, whatever it is, and write, why do I drink? Because you have to be honest. There's people like me. I was a binge drinker.
Oh,
So binge
yes.
drinker means that I don't
Absolutely.
like. I once I start with one, I will have 7 or 10. That will be okay for me. And even though I didn't black out 95% of the time, right? There was 5% that I you never know. But you will say that I'm functional. For the world, I was a functional
Right.
drinker because I will be the normal thing on the weekend, have 10 drinks. Oh, that's
Me
okay.
too.
She's just winding down and it's not okay. So ask yourself, why am I drinking? Is it that you're using it to numb yourself? Is it that you are just looking for, just a escape, right? A way to get out of your current situation? Because it's always an underlying issue. That's where I'm trying to get. Because
Yes.
when you drink it to the point of oblivious, I don't think that's just because you want to have fun. Because then you will stop. right? But that's what I think.
Right.
What do you think was your reason for drinking?
Goodness, I think a lot of things. And I didn't know in the beginning why I drank. That kind of unfolded over time. I think I knew some of it was just, I got to a point where I was drinking because everything, you drink for everything. Oh my gosh, so and so's on my nerves, so I feel anxious. I'm going to drink for that. But what I did uncover was I have ADHD, which I knew that anyway. But now, not drinking, I can see why I did. I was kind of like an evening wine drinker to shut off the shit in my head. I mean, my head just goes, 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 goes. Like I will lay there and not fall asleep because it just constantly goes. And I had a lot of different childhood traumas. One was my dad died fairly suddenly when I was 9 years old, and I was the baby of 7 kids. And then my mom went back to nursing school, and I was 12, 13. So I was like raising myself there for a little while. I think that had a lot to do with it. Your parents didn't put you in therapy back
Mm-hmm.
then. If you therapy wasn't talked about, mental health wasn't talked about. You just lost a parent, you just went
Mm-hmm.
about your life and just buck up and just go. Um, so I think that was a lot of it. And then let's see, towards the end, and I say this only because to show that you can do this and it can be done. In 2009, no, I'm sorry, 21, I lost two brothers,
Oh
a
my
sister,
God.
and my mom. And then I was able to quit drinking. I forgot about this part. This is another thing that helped me stop drinking. So here I am. I've got two brothers left and a sister. And I thought, who the hell is this going to be next out of all of us? And my two brothers are much older than me. And when I felt like it could be any of us because of my drinking, that was another thing that triggered me to wake up and stop. And my sister as well. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought again with
Sorry
that.
for that. That has to be tough.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I had a lot of reasons. Like I said, you do uncover over time when you're doing all this work on yourself, and you don't just make it to the 6 months or year. This is an ongoing race that you're just going to keep on going and working on yourself if you
Mm-hmm.
want to be successful. I never want to get complacent. That's another thing. I don't ever want to. There's a great guy that runs our meetings named Static that always says, "When you don't think you need a meeting is
Mm-hmm.
when you do think you need a meeting."
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. I agree with that, that Static says. Because the thing is that don't get too overconfident, right? Alcohol is just everywhere. It's like for me, alcohol is the
yes.
little devil. Let's put a character to it. That's perfect. You have the little angel, you have the devil. That devil's there.
Yes,
He's
it
not.
is.
He's dormant right now
Eggs.
because I'm feeding my angel. Right? I'm doing things like self care. I'm learning, but
Right, right.
that little devil is right there, waiting for me to lower my guard in any moment, in any circumstances. It's gonna rise because sometimes you do get those thoughts, right? You get those thoughts like, well, I have proven myself that I have
Mm-hmm.
control, and because I haven't been drinking for almost a year and a
Mm-hmm.
half, that means, or 2 years for you, that means that, hey, why not maybe drink once a month, or once, or just in like weddings, or let's just put the famous one, let's just drink in vacation, right? Which it's a big one. A lot of people have
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
restart their counting sometimes because of vacations, because they're tough. They're tough to deal with. I did it. Now really doesn't bother me, but the first one that
Yes.
I did struggle with it a little bit. The very first one. How was yours? Your first vacation with no alcohol? Was it struggle or
Yes.
was it a breeze?
It was rough. That's another thing that helped me quite a bit is have accountability partners. I should give a shout out to him. It's Sue on the forum, Getting Better Sue, and Dog Walker Beth are my two accountability partners I talk to almost daily. And without them, I mean, like on my first vacation, I remember texting Sue and she's like, are there NA beers? And I'm like, Heineken. I'm like, I don't know. Heineken's not like my thing, but she's like, put a lime in. I'm like, oh my God, it is so much better with this. So, I mean, through every little thing, they were carrying me
Mm-hmm.
through.
That's important.
And then, like I said, my husband was still drinking. So I was like, I have got to make it through because I was on, like I said, another challenge that I was hell bent that I was going to make it through that challenge and not disappoint. So that had me
You have
motivated
to have a
too.
bigger why than yourself at some point to keep you going, and
Yes.
to, because in those hard situations, that's when things can get really difficult. One thing that I did, since listen, I did like going to bars, right? Going to bars, sitting down. I'm in Florida, so I went to, it was a local little getaway. I went to St. Augustine and it was beautiful. It's like a little historic town. It's the oldest town in the whole states. And then I'm like, but I was craving sitting down at the bar and having a drink. Like it was my old self. You know what I did? I said, I can, who says that I can't?
Yes.
I went to the bar, right? If for me it was okay. If that's a trigger for you, please don't do it. But for me it was okay. I went to the bar, it was full. I was
Yes.
standing. I didn't even sit down, but I don't care. The point was to feel like I was part of it. I went and I ordered and a Guinness and I had it. I had one. Can you believe that
Huh?
settled it? That because before that I was having this constant thinking like, oh my
Yes.
God, going back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna punch it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have my NA. I had it. I talked. I was with my boyfriend. We were talking. Listen, peace. After that, I got off. I got my one drink and I left, and that's it. You can do it. So it doesn't
Yes.
have to drag it.
I did the same.
So, healthcare, how does
Yes.
alcohol relate in the healthcare industry? Is it something that people do, or they're aware? Because I know they should. If you're in healthcare, you should be aware of alcohol and what it does to you.
Yep. Yep. It's funny. Like I said, we would go on these boozy trips, a whole bunch of us nurses. There was a time I was working as a nurse practitioner that just wasn't for me, so I got out of that. And I am guilty of being that provider. When you go to the doctor and how many drinks do you drink? Okay, and you just skim over that part because you
Hmm.
yourself, and I think this is
Hmm.
interesting because I know I'm not alone in this. And I worked as a provider because I worked with other providers that did, they were right along with me. I was at their house drinking with them. And you do skim over that with your patients. So make sure you get a provider that really listens to you and you're able to open up to them and tell them. Because sometimes, depending on how much you drink, you might need getting off the alcohol if you have any kind of physical dependence. But, I know how, and I'm sure everyone here knows how they ask you those questions. How much do you drink? And you put that on the questionnaire, and
I
nobody
agree.
really looks at it. I mean, I've not really been asked that. I can remember a couple times being asked about that. What's funny is my own provider, my previous one passed away suddenly, and I have a new one. And I was new. I was like, I think I was a year sober. And I told him, I'm like, I'm sober. I used to do, and he just kind of looked at me like I was nuts, like, okay, you're making me uncomfortable. And he just kind of skimmed over it too, like I used to do. And I'm like, okay, well, he doesn't really want to hear this. He just burst my bubble, but okay. Oh, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. We're
Yeah.
humans as healthcare providers, and what we're doing behind closed doors makes us uncomfortable to
Yeah,
discuss
the
with our
whole world,
patients.
the whole world
So,
tries
that's
to
out there.
put alcohol under the rug. It's like, yeah, we know it's bad, but let's just, keep it hidden. Now, if you want to hear something
Yes.
crazy, I have a friend that went to a therapist to try to stop drinking, but he was not alcohol dependent. He didn't have that daily problem. His problem is, 1 or 2 days of the weekend, and he goes into like me, a binge drinker.
Huh?
Can you believe the guy told him, "Hey, listen, you don't have a problem. Just start by counting them. Just count them." That was his actual
My
advice.
goodness.
And this is a therapist. He was going there for this one problem. To have your therapist, and that's crazy because you went for help
Wow.
and then you're validating his behavior as a professional, as a healthcare professional. I
Yes.
think that's just crazy.
Yes. And he was probably hoping to be led somewhere to
Hmm.
be helped. He
Yeah.
just
If
kind of
you don't
got brushed
understand it,
over.
then don't work
Goodness.
on it. Like, be honest. Let's say, listen, I can
Yes.
recommend you another
Yes.
provider that specializes in recovery or an alcohol-free lifestyle, because there's different things. Like, I'm creating this podcast, but my podcast in reality is for people that are like us, like not necessarily maybe a person that needs, like, I'm not saying that they can't hear, but like people that are really, 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 really into drinking alcohol every day in excessive amounts that they can't stop drinking. Like, you have to go and get professional health care
Uh-huh.
because you can even die. That's a different type of situation. I think that
Yes.
a person that is a therapist and I'm going to ask for
Correct.
help, and then you're validating me, and I go that weekend and go into this bench, and then I can even lose my life because you were responsible instead of trying to help me. That's what I'm getting at. So
Yes,
we're coming to the end of
correct.
our
Yeah.
podcast today, and I always ask this question before we head out. What would be the tool that you will recommend a person that is considering to be alcohol free to start doing, and getting themselves into this journey?
I would say get into a sober community. I'm biased to the
Hmm.
app that we met on, Reframe, and just stay connected. Use everything about it. There are tools on there. Just get in the community and stay connected. Get an accountability partner and just tell people, if you're serious about it, tell people right off the bat, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm not happy with things right how they are drinking, and so this is what I'm doing, and then I need you to support me, and if you don't, then just need to take a break
Yes,
from you right
I
now,
like that.
and just pour your heart and soul into it, like it's a job, like this is your part-time job, is to get my
Like your life depends on
sobriety,
it. Hmm.
and never
Because
give up.
it really does.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes.
it can, it will determine what kind of quality, right? Depending on the amount you use. Well, thank you so much, Patty. You're being great. I love your story. I can resonate so much with it.
Thank you.
And for everybody else that's
Thank you.
listening, thank you again for tuning in. Reframe, I am biased too. I am not a sponsor. They're not paying me for this or anything like that. But I do have a code. I think they give like a month free or something like that. I'm going to put it in the show notes for anybody. Yeah, I think they do.
They
I'm going to look
do.
for it. I think if you do it on your own, they give you a week. But if you use my code, they give you a month. I think a month it's a pretty solid trial to actually try the app and get into the meetings. I mean, you can meet
Sure
people
is.
like wonderful Patty right here and myself, that we are always in the community. So I will put that in the show notes. But I also want to say, guys, if you're interested and you're a person that it's debating it and you have any questions or anything like that, feel free. I'm a certified coach, so you can have a 45-minute one-on-one call with me, and we can talk about what are your goals and see if something that you would like to work on. Anyways, once again, thank you so much for listening to the next episode. Bye.